And I go, the fuck was that? I look up, I get up, and I just, bam! And I had no idea, Dan, in all honesty, that bat was illegal.
George Brett's iconic pine tar meltdown is the image most people remember, but the real story goes much deeper. This Hall of Famer, who collected over 3,000 hits across 21 seasons with the Kansas City Royals, played with a fire that burned hotter than almost anyone else. And even today, at 72, there are 3 men he still hates for pushing him to his absolute limit. One was his own teammate, another was a vicious rival, and the third was a cunning manager who ambushed him at the worst possible moment. Let's start with the teammate who hurt him the most. Back in 1976, George Brett and Hal McRae were locked in a razor-thin battle for the batting title. McRae, who was black, held a tiny lead over Brett, who was white, going into the final day of the season. The margin between them was impossibly small, just 5 1/1000ths of a percentage point. McRae was hitting .33078, while Brett was at .33073. It all came down to one final game. In the bottom of the 9th inning, Brett came to the plate and hit what should have been a routine fly ball to left field. But something strange happened. Minnesota Twins outfielder Steve Bry somehow misplayed it. The ball dropped about 10 to 15 feet in front of him on the artificial turf and took a massive bounce over his head. Brett circled the bases for an inside-the-park home run that instantly gave him the batting title. His average jumped to .3333, while McRae, who batted right after and made an out, finished at .3320. What happened next shocked everyone. McRae immediately confronted the Twins' dugout, accusing manager Gene Mauch of deliberately orchestrating the defensive mistake. He publicly implied that racial bias motivated the opponents to favor Brett over him. In his anger, McRae declared that things were still the same in 1976 America, linking the perceived manipulation directly to racial politics in the United States. The accusation was explosive. McRae was saying that the white manager and white outfielder conspired to ensure the white player won the title over the black player. Both Mauch and Bry denied the conspiracy allegations completely. Bry insisted he simply messed up, saying he played too deep and misjudged the ball. Mauch defended his player fiercely, saying the suggestion hurt him worse than anything in his 35 years in baseball, and that he would never harm the integrity of the game. Even Brett himself acknowledged something felt wrong. He admitted he felt like he got a present from the Twins and felt just as bad about it as McRae did. Despite the controversy, the two teammates managed to preserve their friendship. McRae later noted that although the circumstances could have torn apart their relationship, it didn't. Brett agreed, saying they were great friends before, and that while McRae felt cheated that day, he was fine with it afterward. Still, McRae's accusation served as a painful public test of their bond and forced Brett to deal with an individual achievement that was forever tainted by serious allegations of racial unfairness. Think about the kind of rivalries that truly define a player's career. These weren't just battles on the field, they were personal wars that shaped legacies. Drop your thoughts in the comments below about which rivalry in baseball history cut the deepest, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that made sports legends. The controversy with McRae was internal and emotional, but Brett's next great rivalry was pure physical violence. This brings us to the second man Brett hates, Yankees third baseman Graig Nettles. The Yankees and Royals faced each other in 4 American League Championship Series over 5 years from 1976 to 1980, creating one of baseball's most brutal rivalries. It had a David versus Goliath feel, with the emotional, aggressive Royals constantly battling the powerful Yankees dynasty. The 1977 playoffs were particularly charged. The aggressive tone was set early when Hal McRae executed a hard slide in Game 2 that nearly knocked Yankees second baseman Willie Randolph into left field during a double play attempt. This created an environment where physical confrontation felt inevitable, and in Game 5, the decisive game of the series, that confrontation finally exploded. In the bottom of the first inning, with McRae on base, Brett drove a pitch for a triple. As he slid into third base, he executed a hard, aggressive maneuver, using his forearm and momentum to shove Nettles away from the bag. Nettles, known for his slick defense and his hatred of the aggressive Royals, retaliated instantly. As Brett rose from his slide, Nettles stepped back and delivered a vicious kick directly to Brett's head. An enraged Brett immediately threw a haymaker punch at Nettles, and the confrontation escalated into a full-scale, bench-clearing brawl. The fight involved nearly every player from both teams, including Yankees pitcher Ron Guidry. What's remarkable is that despite the extreme violence, including a retaliatory kick to the head, no players were ejected from the contest. This absence of discipline demonstrates how intense physical aggression was often tolerated as part of the game's dramatic landscape in 1970s playoff baseball. In an unexpected moment of sportsmanship amid the chaos, Yankees captain Thurman Munson actually intervened to protect Brett. Munson placed his glove over Brett's head while he was in the pile, ensuring he avoided any cheap shots. Brett later recalled Munson saying he wouldn't let anybody hit him when he was down, cementing Munson as a figure of respect despite the deep rivalry between their teams. But Nettles wasn't done with Brett. His hatred ran deeper than just physical confrontation. 6 years later, he became the mastermind behind the most famous baseball controversy ever, working with the third man Brett hates, Yankees manager Billy Martin. On July 24, 1983 at Yankee Stadium, the Royals trailed the Yankees 4-3 in the top of the ninth inning, with 2 outs and a runner on first base. Brett came to the plate and delivered a dramatic, go-ahead, 2-run home run off Yankees closer Goose Gossage, seemingly giving the Royals a 5-4 lead. As Brett celebrated what appeared to be a game-winning hit, Martin, a notorious tactical manager, approached home plate umpire Tim McClelland. Martin requested an inspection of Brett's bat, claiming excessive use of pine tar, a sticky substance used to enhance grip. This challenge was highly calculated. It was based on a prior observation by Nettles, who had noticed the wide swath of pine tar on Brett's bat weeks earlier. Nettles had advised Martin to save this information for a crucial moment, resulting in a premeditated tactical ambush designed to inflict maximum emotional and competitive damage. The rule stated that any foreign substance, including pine tar, could not cover the bat handle more than 18 inches from the end. McClelland used the 17-inch width of home plate as a measuring standard and determined that the pine tar covered approximately 24 inches of the bat, a clear violation. Based on the rule that dictated a player who uses an illegally batted ball is out, the umpires nullified Brett's home run and called him out. As this was the third out in the ninth inning, the initial ruling declared the game over with a 4-3 Yankees victory. The call triggered one of baseball's most enduring images. An enraged George Brett charged McClelland, screaming wildly before being restrained by teammates and manager Dick Hauser. Brett was ejected for his outburst, and Royals pitcher Gaylord Perry was also tossed after attempting to steal the illegal bat as evidence. This highly volatile reaction cemented Brett's reputation, having an explosive temper on the field. But the Royals immediately filed an official protest. The confiscated bat was sent to American League President Lee MacPhail for a ruling. 4 days later, MacPhail issued a decision that fundamentally changed how baseball applies technical rules. He ruled that while Brett had undeniably violated the letter of the rule by using an illegal bat, the penalty of calling him out and nullifying the home run was improper. The rule's intention was to prevent the use of doctored bats to enhance distance, and excessive pine tar, while sticky, did not give such a competitive advantage, meaning it did not violate the spirit of the rule. MacPhail summarized his finding with a statement that became legendary. He said games should be won and lost on the field, not through technicalities of the rules. He upheld the protest and ordered the game to be resumed from the point of Brett's home run, with the Royals leading 5-4. This decision established a binding precedent for prioritizing competitive fairness over hyper-technical rule exploitation. Yankees owner George Steinbrenner immediately challenged the ruling by obtaining an injunction from the New York Supreme Court to prevent the game's resumption. However, the American League appealed, and the injunction was swiftly overturned by Justice Joseph Sullivan, who issued the famous one-line decision stating simply to play ball. The game was finally resumed 25 days later, on August 18th, and officially ended with the Royals winning 5-4. Martin staged a symbolic protest by placing pitcher Ron Guidry in center field and first baseman Don Mattingly at second base for the resumption. Home plate umpire Tim McClelland defended his original call, maintaining that he was obligated to enforce the rule precisely as written. He stated that umpires don't work on the spirit of the rules, they work on the letter of the law. McClelland believed that had he ignored the rule, Martin would have successfully protested, highlighting the difficult position umpires face when applying unclear regulations. MacPhail's ruling proved so significant that decades later, Major League Baseball formally amended the official rules in 2010 to reflect his interpretation. The rule now includes a clarifying comment stating that if no objection is raised prior to the bat's use, a violation of the pine tar limit does not nullify any action or play on the field. The pine tar incident remains the single most famous case study of rule conflict in baseball history, resulting in a fundamental legislative clarification that prevented the use of obscure technicalities as weapons in managerial warfare. So there you have it. The 3 men who defined George Brett's career through conflict. Billy Martin, the tactical mastermind who orchestrated the calculated ambush, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Greg Nettles, the physical and strategic rival who kicked Brett in the face during a playoff brawl, and then years later set up the pine tar trap that led to baseball's most famous meltdown. And Hal McRae, the teammate and friend, whose bitter public accusation of racial conspiracy tainted Brett's first batting title and forced him to carry the weight of an achievement forever shadowed by allegations of systemic unfairness. These 3 men pushed George Brett to his breaking point time and again, cementing his legacy not just as a Hall of Famer with incredible statistics, but as an explosive, fiery competitor who would do anything to win. His career was defined as much by these intense battles as by his 3 batting titles across 3 decades or his 1980 MVP award. The image of Brett charging the umpire in 1983 remains one of baseball's most iconic moments, a perfect snapshot of a player whose passion sometimes overwhelmed everything else. Which of these 3 rivals do you think was the worst? Was it Martin, the calculating strategist? Nettles, the brutal antagonist who evolved from physical violence to mental warfare? Or McRae, the internal conflict that cut deeper than any external enemy? Let us know what you think in the comments and hit that subscribe button for more stories about baseball's most intense competitors and the rivalries that defined them.